Okay, so as I said, today I'm going to be going over Garageband a little bit with you guys. But before we fully jump into the program, I want to make sure you guys understand basic second to third grade level music theory. And I know that sounds really, really weird, but most of the time when individuals start teaching things like Garageband, there's an assumption that's made that everyone already understands the parts of music and what a song is composed of and how music actually works. So before we fully jump into that, I kind of want to go over what that is with you guys to make sure that you guys have an understanding of what music is and just how it works. So my question for you guys today that we're going to try and go through really quickly is, what are the 3 parts to a song? So a song typically needs to have 3 parts in order for it to be a song. I'll give you one of them. One of those parts, number 3, is rhythm. There needs to be some sort of movement, some sort of rhythm, something that is keeping track of the time in order to continue to push the song forward. Okay? What are the other 2? What are 2 other parts of a song other than rhythm? Go for it. Melody. Perfect. That is the first part. Okay, I know this is really weird. We're going back to like I said, like second or third grade here. But can you explain really quickly what melody is, Brian? Okay. Okay, it is difficult to kind of explain these different parts. So rhythm is typically something like drums. It's the beat that keeps the song moving forward. So when you hear a rap song, typically you'll hear a hi-hat with a bass. Okay, that's your rhythm section. Okay, the melody is the part of the track. Actually, let's go ahead and define melody exactly as it is. Okay, melody is a sequence of single notes that satisfies or sounds musically pleasing. Okay, these are typically your one instrument type songs where you hear the song and all of a sudden you begin to feel an emotion that's attached to it because of the way the notes are arranged together. Okay, so this is basically your basic song. Typically, melody is composed of a piano or a guitar. Okay, and so that's why most of the songs that you'll listen to outside of dubstep will typically have one of those 2. It'll have a piano or it'll have a guitar section in some way, shape, or form. Okay, synthesizer is also used in there, but it's just utilizing piano notations with a different with different sounds that are attached to those musical notations. What's the last one that we have here? So we have melody and rhythm. What else do we have? Anyone want to guess? The answer is harmony. Okay, harmony is the other thing that we have available to us. Anyone want to guess or know what harmony is? Harmony? Yeah, there you go. So harmony, it's the combination of simultaneously musical notes let me read the definition. Let's try that again. It says the combination of simultaneously sounded musical notes to produce chords, chord progressions, and have a pleasing effect. The second definition says it's an arrangement as such to where it fills in the gaps that are left by the melody. Okay, so harmony takes 2 tracks, it's usually the second part of the track, and combines it together with the leading part to fill in all the gaps to create a very, very pleasing sound that sounds full. Okay? The rhythm keeps the beat and the progression so that way you know how fast or how slow melody and harmony should be working together as they continue to move along together with one another. Typically, harmony, you have either a bass guitar that's attached to it or a synthesizer. Okay. Sometimes in rock bands, typically they'll be made up of 4 individuals. Okay. You'll have your lead singer. You'll have a guitar player playing the melodic part of the song. You'll then have another guitar player, either bass or regular guitar, that's playing the harmony to fill in the gaps. And then you have a drummer in the back. That's why when you develop something like the Rock Band video game, if you guys remember that a couple of years ago, they had those 4 instruments. You had a microphone, you had 2 guitars, and you had drums. And by utilizing all these instruments together, you can replicate what songs actually sound like. Okay? So we have to start understanding these 3 parts of a song before we begin to understand how we can compose stuff inside of GarageBand. So if you haven't already opened up GarageBand, go ahead and open up GarageBand on your machine. Okay? And knowing that we have to produce melody, harmony, and rhythm, let's go ahead and start taking a look at what we have available to us inside of GarageBand to hopefully begin to replicate and create our own song, or replicate that and hit our own song. Okay? So if you guys have not already, go ahead and open up GarageBand. When you open up GarageBand, you will typically be notated, or you will get this particular composition. Now, sometimes you might have some other options underneath here. Like if you go under Learn to Play, or there's project templates, there's different stuff for you to choose from. Sometimes when you're starting out, there's 3 other options that are available down here at the bottom. Those are, I think, Keyboard Collection, Amp Collection, and Voice. Those are for like podcasts or other instrumental notations and stuff like that. We won't be utilizing that for this particular project, or for the stuff that we do in here. Okay? What we're going to be doing is we're going to be creating and starting a new project directly from scratch. So we want to click on Empty Project. So go ahead and double click on Empty Project. Okay. Now once we open up a brand new project, okay, you will have 4 options that are thrown in front of you. Okay? Very, very simply, these options are asking, how do you want to accept and utilize sound as your first track inside of GarageBand? Okay? You'll also notice that as we're going along as well, that you guys will get yellow helper markers as we're going along. Those yellow helper markers, which you'll see here in just one second, actually point out what different things do inside of the GarageBand software for you. So if you get stuck, you can click a button, and I'll show you which button that is here in a second, and you'll be able to go back and be able to get all the information about what that particular button actually does inside of GarageBand. Okay? For us, though, we want to choose one of these 4 ways to input sound into the application. So the first option we have is a software instrument, which means that if we have a keyboard, we can actually hook up a keyboard to our computer and start utilizing that as an instrument. Okay? We have the option under audio, which is blue, to record using a microphone or to connect a guitar or a bass to the computer, to the Mac, in order for it to accept those sound device inputs. Or we can actually utilize a drummer that GarageBand and the machine learning AI that's incorporated within it begins to learn to play along with the other options that we've placed inside of our particular tracks inside the application. We're going to start out with software instrument. Okay? You'll notice again that these are notated in green, blue, and yellow. This is going to become more important as we continue to explore the application and utilize this. So make sure you keep an idea and an understanding of green, blue, and yellow, because those are going to come back here in just a second. So make sure you've chosen software instrument and choose Create. Okay? And now when you choose Create, you have a bunch of different options that are available to you for you to be able to utilize inside of GarageBand. So what we're going to do is, because you guys have the notations on, if you guys don't have the notations on, you can click this little question mark. It's a help button. It's the second pad in that will give you information about stuff. If you don't have that, don't worry. We'll come back to that. You might be working under a different version of GarageBand than I am. But for the most part, it should be there. Whenever you guys hover over something, it will tell you exactly what it is. Okay? So now that we kind of have GarageBand open, let's go ahead and explore the interface here really quick, because some of you guys have options that other people don't, and I have options that are different than you guys do. Okay? So let's go over all the different options, and let's start with the top menu. So if you hover over the button all the way on your left, you will see that this is your library. Okay? This opens up the library for you to patch in different instruments for a software instrument that you're going to be utilizing. If you click on that button and close it, so right now it's open for you guys. If you click on it and close it, you'll see that the side panel on your left will start going away. Okay, click it again, side panel will open back up. Right? To the right of that, you should have a help button, but let's keep going a little bit more to the right of that. We have smart controls. You can modify current individual patches. A patch is where you're going to be able to switch or change part of a particular track or channel. And then you have an editor's button. Okay, the editor's button allows you to open up a selected type of track and begin to edit stuff down here at the bottom part of the screen. So if I took away that editor's button, if I clicked on it, you'll see that I lost the bottom part of my window down here. Okay, if I bring it back up, it's there. If I hit the Smart Editor's control, you can see that also comes up at the bottom. They swap back and forth between the two. So if you ever want to switch the bottom window that you're currently working in, you can utilize these buttons up here at the top upper left-hand corner in order to be able to do so. Okay? As we move closer to the middle of the screen, up here, you can see we have a rewind, we have a fast forward, a stop, a play, a record button, which we'll get to in 1 second, and then a cycle. A cycle allows you to choose a very specific portion of your track that you're editing and have it be on a loop. So that way it plays over and over and over and over again, so that way you can really micro-edit that particular part of your track. Okay? In the middle over here, a little bit more, we have our beats position display, our tempo display, and then our key signature display. Okay? We'll get into this a little bit more when we start speeding up or slowing down tracks, and also change the musical notation of tracks. We're not going to really get into key signatures that much. I'm going to very briefly touch on it with you. But you do have the option and the ability to build a track in one key and then pitch shift or key shift your entire track to a different key after you're done or as you're even building it. Okay? If we move over or slide over a couple tracks more, you're going to see two purple buttons in the middle of your screen. Okay? Those two purple buttons, the first one right here is a count in button, which means that it's going to count down. It's going to do 4, 3, 2, 1, and then it'll actually start. Okay? It won't just start immediately once you hit record. Okay? It'll count you in a little bit more. What's more important, though, is the metronome, because you'll notice that as I was over here, I was snapping and trying to keep time myself. Humans can't keep exact time account as well as machines can. And so what we're going to do is we can utilize the metronome to keep track, to make sure that our beats, our kick, and our hi-hats, and all of our other sounds are happening at the correct musical notation marks. If you want to turn those on and off, you just click them, and they turn on and off. Okay? So that's how you can turn those on and off. So if you get tired, as of right now, if you listen to what I'm hearing or what I'm playing, you get this metronome. If I turn off the metronome by clicking it, it turns off. Okay? If I turn it back on, it'll turn back on. Okay? So that will allow you to keep your time as you're continuing to move forward or moving backwards along the track. You have your overall volume slider. This is what's called your master volume slider. That's right next to it next. Okay? This master volume slider turns up the sound for all tracks or turns down the sound for all tracks. And then finally, last but not least, these three buttons over here on the side, most of them you will not use. The first one is a notation or a notepad. If you click on the notepad, you'll be able to start typing in notes over on the side. So if you want to keep track of things as you're creating your musical creation, you can type it in the notepad. The one all the way to the right is your media browser. This allows you to browse stuff that's already in iTunes or already in Garageband, if you open or close it. But the button we're going to be using the most is the loop browser button. So go ahead and click on the loop browser button for me. It's the middle button in the middle of the page. And you'll notice that as you clicked on that, your index, your Apple Loop index is building right now. Okay? The reason why that is important for you to build is because your Apple Loop index what's going on right now is the computer is indexing all the loops that are available to you already on the computer. Okay, we have over 10,000 loops to choose from and to utilize for your GarageBand creations. There's literally hundreds of thousands of loops that you can add in and utilize inside of your GarageBand creations. But we're not going to be utilizing all of those. We have quite a few sounds. We don't have all the sounds. Okay. But once that has loaded up, because for different people it'll take a different amount of time, once that's loaded up, you can actually go in and start looking at different instruments, different genres, and then different descriptions of instruments that are available to you. So let's go ahead and jump back into that, because most people's have populated now. You have kind of what I have up here on the screen. Okay. If it is grayed out on the right-hand side, that is a loop that you would have to download and have permissions to download. Okay. But what's more important is I want you to make note of the color that's associated next to what actually is put down up here. You'll notice that in most cases, they're blue. Okay? Blue tracks are not musically notated tracks. They are audio recordings. So because they are audio recordings, the sound that you hear cannot be changed. It can, when it comes to pitch, shift notation, or changing any of that type of stuff. Green items inside of your loops are musical notations done by instruments. So that means they can be changed. And that's going to become really, really important when you start putting different sounds together, because some sounds you can modify, others you cannot. Okay? Especially when it comes to look at the musical notation. So you'll see, again, you have 3 different options available to you up here in the upper right-hand corner. You have instrument, so you can sort all your loops out by instrument, and there's keywords that are associated with that. You can sort out your loops by genre. So if you're looking for a very specific genre, you can sort them out by that. Or you can sort it out by description, and there's different descriptions that have been added to each individual loop for different people to utilize and use. Okay? This is going to become extremely important when we actually start dropping loops into our pre-recorded tracks. Or not into our pre-recorded tracks, into our tracks. Okay? And so now that brings me to another setup over here. If you click to close your loop browser, this area in the middle is what's called your workspace. Okay? This workspace is where all of your tracks are laid out, one on top of another. They are layered together. Much like a cake, whatever's on the bottom is not going to be seen as much as what's up on the top. You can layer your tracks with video. You can layer it with audio as well. Each track has different identifying factors and has the ability for you to change what is available on each of those individual tracks. Okay, so if you take a look right now, because we chose software instrument, currently I am working with a classic electric piano. You are also working with a classic electric piano as well. Okay? However, if I were to take something from a loop browser and drop it underneath, it's going to change the track, and it's going to change what we have the ability to utilize and change about that particular instrument in that recording. Okay? Last but not least, inside of this particular window, okay, you should also have a keyboard. Okay? Let me see if I can find my keyboard is on a different window, so I'm going to bring it over here. This is what you should have for a keyboard. Okay? All computers, as long as you have an actual functioning keyboard in front of you, have the ability to play musical notes from a keyboard. You do not need a MIDI keyboard controller. Okay? Especially for the stuff that we do. The reason why this is called Garageband is because literally this is stuff that we're just kind of throwing together to add stuff together for videos. This is why Garageband was created. It was created specifically for individuals to learn musical notation, but also for individuals that are working in the video editing world to be able to throw together some musical notations and not have to use a piece of copyrighted music. They can kind of utilize their own, not worried about getting hit or figure out what the copyright issue is for that particular song, and make their videos sound the way they want them to sound. Okay? This is not something that is totally over-the-top professional. Think of GarageBand compared to iMovie, and think of Logic compared to Final Cut Pro. That's how those applications work together. Okay? GarageBand is the audio equivalent to Apple's iMovie. Logic is the audio equivalent to Apple's Final Cut Pro for professionals. Okay? So because you have the ability to change your musical typing, you can see that there are different keys that you can hit on the keyboard that are available for your keyboard. So if you hit the letter A on your keyboard, go ahead and do that, you guys will be able to hear it. And this is at the point where you can go ahead and put on your headphones if you need to in order to start utilizing that. If I hit S, you can see on the keyboard it pops up with that musical notation. Now, can you actually just use your mouse to click on stuff? Yes, you can. Okay? But typically, you don't want to necessarily do that. You want to try and use the keyboard that's in front of you if possible. Okay? If you want to change the pitch, so for example, if I hit A and I want to change the pitch, I can bend the pitch by hitting 1 and 2 as I'm hitting that particular note on the keyboard. Modulation can also change. So if I hit the letter A and then I hit the letter 8 or the number 8, there's some modulation that occurs in between those particular notations. Okay? So the keyboard allows you to adjust things accordingly. The bottom two options allow you to change your octaves. So if you're very musically inclined and you know that you're working in C2 as opposed to C4, let's say you want to change to C4, you can hit the letter A, change your octave, go down the piano to octave C4, and then when you hit the letter A again, same note, just higher up on the scale. Octaves going down to C1 are available for you as well because you can adjust those octaves. And then last but not least, the velocity is how hard you hit that key. So right now it's at 98%. If I take this down, it usually goes in fives to about 33. It's going to be a lot softer of a musical note. Okay, so it's like using a pedal on a key on an actual piano. Okay, so you have the ability to adjust. Now there's also available to you. You can click and choose your octaves that you're going with up here along the keyboard because we don't have 88 keys. You just have your basic octave. If you click up here, you can adjust where you're at on the keyboard or on the piano to adjust the different sounds that you're going to be utilizing. Okay. There is another graphical representation that if you want to see it up here, you can see the graphical representation of it. For the most part, though, you're going to be using the keyboard. Okay. Anyone have any questions about the layout or the space of Garageband? Okay. Cool. So we kind of know what the space looks like and where we can start editing things in. The more you want to edit a particular space, the more you want to get in depth into stuff, the more lost you're going to get. But at least you have an understanding of windows, where they're at in the basic layout, and what you can do from there. So let's build a track. Because for the rest of today, after I'm done teaching you how to build a track, you guys are going to be spending the rest of class building a track in here today, a 30-second track. And then you can utilize some of those tracks and export it out into Final Cut Pro and start being able to utilize that. Because for your TV shows that you're going to start making, you might want to utilize some different soundscapes, sound effects, and then also musical notations as well. All right, so let's kind of jump into this a little bit more. Okay, so here's my workspace, right? I have a blank workspace. I started out with an classical electric piano, but I know for a fact I'm not really going to use that particular track. By the way, anytime you want to get rid of the keyboard, you can hit Command K. Command K. Command K also brings back up your keyboard. Okay, that's how you can get rid of it or bring it back. I know I am not going to be utilizing this track space, so I kind of want to get rid of that particular track. So if I want to get rid of that track, I can hold down Control and click on it and choose Delete Track. Okay, you can also hit Command Backspace, but this is usually one of the easiest ways for me to go through and delete it. Now notice that when I do that, I have to choose a new option. I don't really have a new option I want to choose from, so I'm still going to stick with software, the software instrument, just to get back to my basic window. And then I'm going to start modifying things as we're going along. Okay, so I want to start out with a piano, okay? As I'm playing, if I were to play the piano, I have my keyboard up here on the screen. I have my note, okay? I want to be able to record that. So if I want to record a real instrument and just record that basically in there, I can hit the record button. It'll count me down. And then hit stop. And you'll see that it actually recorded all of my individual notes on this track. So go ahead and record a really quick 4-bar soundtrack with the piano along this track, okay, by hitting the record button. Okay. Okay. Shouldn't be that difficult. We don't want too many notes, but I do want you guys to kind of see what you have available to you. Okay? So now that you've recorded your quick little track, again, it doesn't have to be perfect. You just have to hit record, start doing your musical notation as long as your keyboard is up in front of you, and you'll get your audio track. Okay? But what you'll notice is that some of my stuff is off. Like if you take a look right here, this is not aligned all the way at the very beginning like it should be. Okay? It's not pretty in the way that musical notations are played back. As a matter of fact, if I were to play this back, if I were to take this shoot, what's it called? I forgot what it's called. If I were to roll it back, basically, and start and play from the beginning, That sounds kind of disgusting. Not only that, I don't want to hear the metronome, so I want to take off the metronome. I'm going to play it back again. It's not timed well. There's a lot of stuff that's off. Like, it's just kind of gross. So what's cool is that if I close out of this musical typing, if I close out of the keyboard and then double click on this track, you'll see that it actually brings it up down here at the bottom for me to edit. And if you go on and take a look at these musical notes, you can see that they are off pace. They're not lined up exactly as they should be. What's really great is that you can actually go back in and adjust each of those notes and realign them back up so that way they match exactly where you want it to start and where you want it to stop. So now that I'm going back in and adjusting these individual notes, there we go. So that way it pops up every 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Cool, awesome. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, you can see that I can make these adjustments accordingly. And even though I've recorded it in a particular way, I can go back and adjust those individual notes. So now when I play it back, it's much more consistent. Okay, so even if you mess up on your initial recording, you can always go back and adjust the individual notes. Okay, James, make sure yours is plugged in. Your headphones, they're popped out. Okay, you can go back and adjust those for each individual track. Not only that, you can take one note from here, and you can adjust it and move it up if you want to another note that you actually wanted to hit instead of the note that you did hit. Okay, so when you play it back again, you can get some dissonance, you can get some other stuff available to you in there. Okay, so you have the ability to adjust individual notes, which is great for this particular track, right? What's even more amazing is that because this is an actual instrument, a classic piano, I can change the instrument because the musical notation has changed. Because we're actually using musical notation, you notice the track is green, it is not blue. It means that we can actually change the instrument that's associated or change the patch that's associated with this. So let's say I don't like classic electric piano. I can go over here to my library, go in and take a look and see what else I have, and see that I have like a synthesizer in here. I can choose synthesizer. After I've chosen electric piano, you got to make sure you choose your correct track. I want to choose synthesizer, and I'm going to use EDM chords, and I'm going to use Chicago chords. And you'll notice that it changes the instrument, but does not change your musical notation. So now when I play my musical notation back, it keeps my same track, my same musical notes, but instead of adjusting those musical notes or whatever, it just changed the instrument. This is going to be extremely helpful for you if you want to use pads. So like if you wanted to use something that sounded, let's do some breathing vocals. This is really fun. I'll play this back. And all of a sudden you're designing soundscapes for stuff instead of just having songs. So why is it important that you know the basics of a piano and you know the basics of GarageBand? Is because you can build in atmosphere sounds to your videos and to your tracks. So when you're developing a horror series or you're developing a crazy looking video, you don't need to have a song playing in the background. You can have feeling, you can have atmosphere. And that's one of the ways that people try to utilize audio to get you to take a look at the video more succinctly and feel it more and remember it a little bit more. Okay? There's also things like ghost voices. I can keep adjusting this all day long. Okay? So there's a lot of different stuff that you can utilize this for. And that started out with just the basic piano, right? I was just hitting notes and making adjustments accordingly. Okay? So that's great for notations, but what about individuals that want to just utilize loops that are already pre-made? You have no musical background. The Loops browser allows you to be able to do that. So if you haven't opened up the Loops browser, you can open up the Loops browser, and we're going to go in and start building a track utilizing the Loops browser. Now I'm not going to use this, so if you click on your track and then hit delete, hit the big delete button, it will delete the track up there on the top, and you don't need to worry about it. Okay? As we start to import stuff from our Loops browser, we can start building a song in. So if you remember, we talked about melody, harmony, and rhythm. Okay? So because we talked about melody, harmony, and rhythm, we need to add all three of those. And so let's start with melody. Okay? Melody is either done typically with a guitar or the piano. So let's go in and let's take a look at some piano that we have available to us. If you click on the piano option after you click under Instruments, so if you click under Instruments under your Loops browser, and then click on Piano, okay, you'll see that you have a bunch of different options available to you for piano. Go ahead and find a piano option that you like. That's either green or blue. And then once you have it, you'll need to drag it out from the Loops browser and drop it down below your latest track. Okay? This will create a brand new track available for you for that particular instrument. Okay? So find a piano or find a guitar really quick. Drag that out that you like. By the way, if you want to listen to them, you can just single click. Okay. And then if you want to stop it, you can click back on the track to kind of stop it again if you need to. Okay? But I found mine. Okay? I'm going to use Against Time. I'm going to use this. Okay? Very simple. Very, very, very simple in the way that it progresses, right? So when I go back to my master track, this is what it sounds like. It just cuts, right? But I don't want it to cut. I want it to loop. So how do we get it to loop? If you hover over the edge of each of these individual tracks, you'll see down at the bottom there is one icon that allows you to stretch or stretch the length of the track. Not stretch the length, because it's not stretching. Add on time to that particular loop or take away time for that loop. Or if you look in the upper right-hand corner, you will see there's another icon that has a backwards loop available to it. If you take that loop and click on it and drag it down to the right, it will begin to create a repetitious loop that you can keep so that way your track can keep going. So now when I play my audio master track back, it'll keep looping all the way through, okay? And so that's important so that way you can build progressive loops. Now you'll notice that sounds very, very empty, right? The reason why it sounds very empty is because we only have melody. So let's go back in and try and find something that harmonizes with that melody. And typically harmony is a bass guitar or it's another guitar. So I'm going to look for a bass. I'm going to go through here and I see I found bass. And I'm going to look through the different basses that I have available and start making adjustments accordingly. So I'm going to see if I can find one that I like. Cool. I like that one actually. Right off the bat, I picked a good one. Okay? So I'm going to take that bass and I'm going to drag it down underneath. And I'm going to create another loop sequence so that way it continues to loop for that whole sequence. Okay? So now when I build that melody and that harmony together, you can start to see how this starts to become a more full sound. It still is a little bit empty, but there's definitely a fuller sound that's encompassed within there. Okay? Last thing we need to do is add in rhythm. Okay? In order to add in rhythm, we need to not utilize anything that's available in the Loops browser. We have to add in a drummer track. Okay? So for us to add in a drummer track, what we have to do is we have to go all the way up to the top, go under where it says track, and then choose new track. Okay, so again, go up into the menu at the top of the screen, choose track, and then do new track. And you'll see that you have an option for a drummer all the way over here on the right-hand side. Double click on drummer, and it will create a drummer automatically for you based on some of the things that the machine or that the Garageband is hearing and listening to. Okay? Now, this is just what Garageband gave me by coincidence. I have no idea what this is going to sound like, but this is what it gave me based on the instruments that I put together so far. Okay, Very, very simple. Very, very simplistic. This is why you have all these SoundCloud rappers. Okay? And anyone with 30 bucks and a Mac computer can literally serve up whatever the latest track is that they want to drop, right? Okay? That's not quite what I want. I want to adjust some of this stuff a little bit. So with the drummer track, if you click on it and come over here on the side, you'll see that you have a bunch of different options available for you when it comes to drummer. You have rock drummers. As a matter of fact, here's what Kyle, quote unquote, sounds like as a rock drummer, right? That's just a basic. Well, if I wanted to go over to an R&B person and I want to hear Curtis, I want to hear his Neosoul, this is what his Neosoul is going to sound like. Much different sounds, right? Now, what's really cool about the drummer in here is that you have the ability to decide to tell Curtis, how do you want Curtis to play? Okay. Right now, he's doing a preset that's called Lay It Down. He's laying it down, right? But maybe you don't like that. Maybe you want him to do more than just lay down a track, right? If you want to adjust things, you can go down here to the bottom of your screen. And right now, instead of him playing loud, let's say you want him to play soft, you can take this marker and adjust it to how you want him to play. So if you move it to the left, he plays simple. Move it up, he plays loud. Move it to the right, complex. Down, he plays soft. Somewhere in between there, you can make some adjustments to how Curtis plays the drums. So this is soft and simple. This is loud and complex. And it will begin to make adjustments accordingly for you and how you try and put stuff together. Now, that's not the only option you have. You can adjust the fills by changing some of these dials. You can change the swing. You can add in some percussion. So let's say for me, I wanted a shaker, actually, and I want it to be a lot of shaking. I can go back now, and when I play this, there's going to be a shaker in there. Okay, changes the way completely how you feel as an individual. And what's really crazy is if I decide to go in and mute this particular track, so if you want to know how to mute tracks, you can go over here and you'll see that inside of the actual track there is a button with a speaker on it that has a line through it. It says mute. If you click on that and you just want to hear it back originally, this is what it originally sounded like before I added in just that drummer. See how it sounds very, very empty in the way that it's coming together? It's because we're only using 2 of the 3 basic components of a song. Now, sometimes you might want those to scale, right? So you might want to start out with the piano and then go into the bass. So we can move these tracks around. I'm going to slide this a little bit further down. I'm not going to have this loop as much. And then I'm going to have the drummer come in with the bass. So I'm going to have it start out with some piano, then bring in the bass and the drummer. And now all of a sudden, we're building our track to kind of go somewhere. It's not just this static sounding piece of music, right? And there's many more things for you to choose from, but those are the basics of utilizing stuff within Garageband. You really, really want to try and put together as much as you can melody, harmony, and rhythm in order to make sure that this stuff is available to work for you. Okay? So those are the basics, like I said, of doing Garageband. You can make individual track adjustments. You can do a bunch of other stuff. Okay? So now let's say you're done. Okay? I'm done with my track. How do I get this track out of here? How do I export this track out and drop it into Final Cut Pro? Okay? In order to be able to export this out of GarageBand to go to Final Cut Pro, you want to go up to Share at the top of the screen. Okay, so go ahead and go up to Share right now. We're going to have you export out your song as is, regardless if you're done with it or not, because I want to show you guys how to take this into Final Cut Pro. Okay, so you're going to share it, and you're going to go down to Export Song to Disk. Export Song to Disk. Now, when you export your song to disk, you guys will have a couple of different options available to you. All right, you guys always want to choose MP3 and change the quality to the highest quality. Okay, so that way you get the best sounding MP3 file you can. MP3 files are not the best sound files. They are going to work for what it is that we do in here. Typically, if you want the best sound file, you use a WAV or you use an AIFF. Okay, AIF is Apple Interchangeable File Format. Okay, so you have the different ability to export this out how you want to, but MP3s will serve us fine for our purpose. And you also want to title the song. So go ahead and title it. I'm going to title mine Demo. Okay, and you want to make sure that you export this out to your desktop. So when you're choosing from your drop-down menu, if you do not choose desktop, you're not going to see it there. So you want to make sure you export everything out to your desktop, because if you ever lose your files, you're going to be able to see them when you log in on the machine that you're working on. Okay? And the reason why I wanted you to go back to the same computers that you're working on today is because, from last time we met, is because you have a video file that's already been created that's been dropped in there, and I want you to see how it matches up with that. Okay? So then you're going to choose Export. It'll bounce the song, so it'll bounce it from that application out to the desktop. And then once that's done, we can go ahead and open up Final Cut Pro. So let's go ahead and open up Final Cut Pro. Okay, I know you guys want to get back to creating your songs and doing a bunch of different things, but I want you to see how this all progresses first, so that way we can fully realize what we've done and how the whole process actually begins to work. So if you remember last time, I had my person walking down the street, right? I had my basic video where the person is walking down the street, right? I now have my song, so I need to import it. What do we hit in order to import stuff into Final Cut Pro? Command-I, perfect. So we hit Command-I. I'm going to go to my desktop. In my case, I'm going to search by content created because I'm going to find my song that's called Demo. I'm going to import my song Demo. And now that it's in here, I'm going to drag it down and drop it underneath. And now, here is what my final video looks like. Okay. Very simplistic. Now, you'll notice that my music notation is actually kind of off, right? Where I want this to stop is a little bit different. I want this to stop at about 18 seconds in, 18 seconds and 18 frames. So I'm not done with my track yet. So I'm going to minimize Final Cut Pro, and I'm going to go back into GarageBand here, and I'm going to take a look at this stuff and see what's available here and go, you know what, I want to adjust this so that way at about the 18-second mark, a specific note drops, right? So if you take a look at the way my stuff is set up right now, I don't get to see the time. The time is not displayed inside of GarageBand. So in order for me to change that, I'm going to go up here and hit this drop-down menu and change it from beats and project to beats and time. And now as I'm progressing and moving along, you can see I see my minutes and my seconds. And I can time, and I know for sure that I want something to hit right about this mark. Okay? I want the music to change because that's where inside of my particular video, that's where my thing drops, right? I have my freeze frame. So I'm going to have to make some adjustments to my track in order to make sure that certain things happen at that particular time. So I can do one of two things. I can speed this up. I can slow it down. I can adjust the timing of things. That's point number one. Or I can drag and just drop something else to happen at that specific point in time. So I'm just doing this as a demonstration. I know I want a cymbal to hit right there, so I'm going to go under Instrument. I'm going to go under Percussion. I'm going to look for a cymbal. See if I can find a cymbal. I doubt I'll even be able to find one. I know that they're in here. You would think I would have set this up and practiced this first, but I do not see it. Definitely not what I want. Actually, sure, why not? Let's just add that in there. Okay, so we're going to add that down there below, and that's going to come in at about my 18-second mark. Okay. I also noticed that this is also moving a little bit too slow for my taste. So I can go back in and change the tempo as well. So right now, this is how slow it moves. But if I adjust the tempo upwards, right? There's a lot of different cool stuff I can change because I'm adjusting the tempo, right? If I go back down to where I was at, which is at 70, you can actually double click and just type in 70. Okay, now when I play it back again, it's a little bit slower. But if I double time, this is where math comes in, to 140, it's it's going to sound way different than it did before. Okay. And what's really cool about that is not only can you adjust the tempo, you can also adjust the key signature, like I said. So before, right now we're in D minor. If I want to go to a happier key, I'm going to go to something like F major. And it changes the entire feeling of the song. Major chords are typically happier, minor keys are typically more depressing. E major is what you want to go in if you want something to be as happy as it possibly can be. Either E major or C major typically. And if you want something to sound really sad, you want to go over to A minor and have it sound really sad and really off. But you can change and adjust the music to your heart's content inside of this particular track. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to keep it at, I think it was at D minor. Let's go back to D minor. Right here, right? I'm going to keep it at 70 beats per minute. And I'm going to re-export this out. So I'm going to go back out to share, export song to disk. I'm going to call it demo again, just to make sure we have it. It's going to ask if I want to overwrite it. I do want to overwrite and replace it. Okay, so I'm going to replace it so it's bouncing. And then when it's done bouncing, when I go back into Final Cut Pro, it should be updated. And when this happens right here, there should be a new instrument. So it did not update that. So I'm going to delete this out of here. Delete this out of here. I'm going to re-import it. Okay, demo. Drag it and drop it back down in here. I don't know why the dynamic linking isn't working. So you can see how you can start timing different things. There's a lot of different stuff that you can utilize and have it do. Okay? So that's GarageBand in a nutshell. Okay? Very, very simplistic. As long as you know melody, harmony, and rhythm, you can adjust different sounds and send stuff back and forth between GarageBand and Final Cut Pro. You no longer have to have someone else who's great at music. You can utilize this stuff for yourself. You also don't need to go out and license a track. You can spend some time in GarageBand and make some tracks yourself, especially since most of your videos are really short in the way that they're put together. Okay? Any questions? Go, Zach.
How did you make it faster or whatever?
That's under tempo in the middle. Yeah, right there. You'll see that there's a number that's titled tempo, and that will allow you to adjust it and make it faster or slower.
The seat or whatever?
Mm-hmm. Cool. Anything else? Fantastic. So we're going to spend the rest of class today working on GarageBand.